Hello, and welcome to the SnapIT podcast. I am your host, Nehemiah, and I am the brand ambassador over at SnapIT. Today we have a great show for you. We are speaking to Roger Odell. Roger is the Java and C# instructor over at SnapIT. Today we cover many topics like what Java is exactly, all the way to the duties you may perform. He gives some great information for those of you who are interested in Java. Hope you enjoy this episode just as much as we enjoyed making it.
The SnapIT Solutions Podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Roger.
Thank you for having me.
So one of the main questions that I get for people who are brand new to this world is, what is Java?
So Java was a language that was originally created by James Gosling. He was part of the Sun Microsystems back in 1995. So it's kind of a child language of the C language. And the C language is a much older language that kind of is the root of a lot of the applications we use today.
Another question that pops up immediately after that one is, what type of background do you need to be able to start learning Java?
Really, you just need to understand how to use a computer. I mean, a lot of what we do is utilize your keyboard. You're going to be typing. Basic math would be good to have. You're not really required to be a math wizard to be a programmer. It helps, but it doesn't have to be a requirement. And just a general understanding of computers.
Does this take a long time to learn the language of Java?
Well, the language is pretty vast. Our course that we teach just focuses on fundamentals, the real ground roots of the language itself. And from there, you can do all kinds of other things. But as far as how long it takes to really understand that, even beyond a class, it could take months because it's just a lot of material to go through.
Since you are teaching the fundamentals of Java, could you be able to tell us just maybe some of the topics you do cover in the classroom?
So in the class that I teach, we basically start off with understanding the life cycle of software, getting a base idea of what it takes to create either a feature or just an app from the beginning, whether it's the app that you get on your phone or the website you visit or the desktop app that you install. And from there, we kind of dive into object-oriented programming, which by itself is just a kind of an understanding of how objects work. And by understanding that, it helps digest the Java fundamental content. So we spend a good several weeks going over the real basics of the fundamentals of the Java language. And once we get through that, what I like to do with my students is put them through 9 of the 23 most common design patterns. And what these 9 do is they kind of give them a really good understanding of what they can do with the language. And it covers the basics of those fundamentals. So it kind of helps cinch them together. And to end it, what we do is we create a final project. I put them in teams, I give them a product, and they build it.
How long does it typically take to get certified in Java? And does this class prepare you for that?
Yeah, so Oracle has a varying amount of certifications that can be taken from the very basic level understanding of the language all the way up to enterprise. And before you can really take one of those certifications, you really need to get the job experience. And so trying to do it fresh out of a class is never a recommendation, at least not for me, because you really need to understand what you're doing before you're ready to take an exam like that.
Are there different certifications for someone who has taken the Java course, or is there primarily just one?
I believe that Oracle they've kind of revamped their certifications. So they have multiple ones for Java by itself, and then they have some for Java Enterprise Edition, both from the Java 8 and then Java 11, which is their newest one. So depending on which one you feel the most comfortable with will depend on which certification you take. I don't have a quantity offhand. Somewhere around 6 certifications, I think.
So there are definitely options for people to choose from out there.
Absolutely.
Now, when it comes to Java, is there a lot of coding involved when you're working on the back end of it?
Well, like any profession, you have repetition and practice. So in the classes, we do a lot of students following what I'm doing, typing as I type, and then also doing homework, which involves definition references, also doing exercises that try to reinforce the lectures that we go through. So there is a lot of coding, definitely.
Along with coding, would you be able to maybe tell us some of the job duties that come along with this position?
Well, as a junior developer, typically, you're going to start off doing some of the less, or I should say, lighter pieces to any given application. Most companies, I don't think, would send you to the deep end and do something that a senior developer would most likely do. So that you might do a combination of peer programming, where you're working with another developer and just kind of getting an understanding. And you could even spend, your first few weeks just trying to understand the code that's there, so that way you have a better grasp on being able to take on new tasks.
Another big question that I get often is, what is the average salary for this position?
I believe it's definitely went up since I was started out. I believe it's close to 60,000 now. I think it's around 57. About 10 years ago, it was about 35. So it's definitely come a long way.
So there's a chance that it can continue to go up.
Absolutely, and it could come down to what you decide to specialize in.
So what normally happens after someone graduates this course?
Well, once they get through everything, then the decision is, where do I go from here? And that's one of the reasons why I put a major focus on the fundamentals. I didn't really want to specify, we're going to do web, or we're going to build Android apps, or we're going to go do these desktop things, because to me, it's up to them to pick the path that best suits what they want to do. And I talk to my students about this as we're getting close to the end. I spent a good portion of my career doing Android, and so that's like the direction that I took when I left school. But that may not necessarily be where they want to go. But I will say that a good portion of students that I have talked to had a definite interest in mobile, for sure. But we have some that want to be more of a design and want to move towards web. So I just tell them to pick a direction, try to figure out what you want to do, and then put your hands and feet in and go all in that.
Is there an internship after? And if so, could you tell us what that's like?
So we do have, like SnapIT has an apprenticeship program that some candidates from the classes will get accepted in. And so ours, they have different programs, so depending on what path they choose them to go on to will kind of determine how that works. But I know, like from the Java path, they kind of run right back through the fundamentals again, kind of reinforcing, especially like stuff that we had gone over like 2 months ago that they might have forgotten about as they were going through it. And then slowly working them into a point where they can start working on something like an in-house product.
What's the demand like for that position here in Kansas City?
Well, to me, the demand should be pretty good. A good portion of this area is made up of both Java and C#. I can't say it's an even split, but there's definitely a lot of positions that are here. And I happen to be in a unique position because I'm an organizer for the Google Developers Group in town. And so we see a lot of Java people coming in from all different areas of the city. And so it's one of those type of situations where I get an opportunity to see what companies are doing things like Java.
Oh, that's awesome. And it actually leads me to my last question. What is the job placement like after you finish?
Well, I mean, they have in interviews that they might want to go on. Joining meetup groups is a really good source of social networking, especially in the IT industry. I recommend it to every student, because that's kind of where I got to know a lot of the people that I've either worked with or even helped find work. And a lot of these meetup groups also have recruiters, and recruiters are a good group of companies to talk to because they have the connections with a lot of companies in town, and they can even tell you, things that you might need to study or help with techniques and things like that. It can even help you find work.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Roger, for taking the time out and speaking with us today. I know it was very helpful for me to hear this information, and I think it's going to be helpful for a lot of the upcoming people who are interested in this field. So I do want to thank you for taking the time out and speaking with us today.
Thank you for having me.
The SnapIT Solutions Podcast.